want to ask you something before we begin today. What is the life that is waiting for you on the other side of this? Not the trading account, not the P&L, not the strategy finally working, the life. The one that exists away from the screen, the one that has been quietly waiting while you've been on the mountain. Maybe it's a place somewhere you've been dreaming about that keeps getting pushed further and further away by the next loss, the next recovery attempt, by the next, it's not quite time yet. Maybe it's a relationship, someone who deserves more of you than the version of you that comes home exhausted from being on the desk and being ashamed and already thinking about tomorrow's session. Maybe it's just peace. The simple, unglamorous, completely unrevolutionary experience of something quiet and not feeling the pull of the screen. I ask because today we're going to talk about a man who had to almost die on the mountain, on Mount Everest, to finally see his life. And about what happens when traders get so consumed by the summit, by the recovery, by the winning streak, by being right, by getting back to break even, that the life waiting for them becomes invisible until the mountain forces them to look. Welcome back to the Climb Home. I'm Devin, and we are 3 episodes in now. In episode 1, we established the mountain. The market isn't the mountain. The mountain is the climb from wounded healer to healed one. And we met Rob Hall, who knew his turnaround time and broke it anyway. In episode 2, we went to base camp 1, the guilt loop, the shame spiral. Why I need more discipline is the most expensive sentence in trading. And we introduced the first real shift from verdict to curiosity, from I broke my rules to isn't that interesting? Today we're moving up the mountain. Today we arrive at base camp 2. And, well, it's a breakthrough. It's also, and I want to be honest with you about this from the start, it's not the destination, because base camp 2 has a shadow side that nobody warns you about. And that shadow side has kept more traders stuck than almost anything else on this climb. And we're going to talk about all of that today. So let's go. Base camp 2 is where something genuinely shifts. For the first time, you stop reacting to the individual incidents and start seeing the larger shape of your own behavior. You've been doing the isn't that interesting practice. You've been writing with curiosity instead of verdict. You've been collecting data on yourself in a way you never did before, and patterns are emerging. Real ones, specific ones, the kind that don't lie. Not I revenge trade, but I revenge trade specifically after 2 consecutive losses before 10 a.m. when I haven't slept well and I'm already behind on the week. Not I overtrade, but I overtrade on a slow Tuesday when volume is low and I've already hit my daily target, but I stay at the screen anyway because leaving feels like quitting. Not I freeze, but I freeze exactly on the setups I've been waiting for, the high conviction ones, the ones that matter most. And I execute perfectly on the ones that don't. This is base camp 2, and it feels like finally I understand myself. Finally, I can see what's happening. Finally, I have enough information to actually change. And I want to honor that feeling because it's real. The progress is real. The self-knowledge is real. The patterns you're seeing, they are genuinely there. You have climbed. You are higher on the mountain than you've ever been. And the view from here is different from base camp 1. And here is something I need to tell you about this altitude. Something the view from here makes it very easy to miss. Mount Everest climbers have a name for a specific psychological state that develops at altitude. They call it summit fever, and it is exactly what it sounds like. The summit becomes everything, not because the climber is reckless, not because they're stupid or arrogant or don't understand the risk, but because a combination of everything they've invested, the time, the money, the training, the relationship sacrifice, the years of preparation, combined with the proximity of the goal, creates a specific altered state in which normal risk assessment breaks down completely. The summit becomes the only thing that exists. Everything else, the weather coming in, the turnaround time passing, the body sending distress signals, the Sherpas saying we need to go down now, becomes noise, interference, obstacles between them and the thing they have decided they cannot go home without. Base Camp 2 traders develop their own version of summit fever. And it is subtle, it is sophisticated, it is dressed in the language of self-awareness and growth. Here's what it sounds like. Yeah, I know, I'm a revenge trader. That's just my pattern, I'm working on it. I always do this after a losing week. It's a pattern for me. I've mapped the whole thing. I know exactly what triggers my overtrading. I've been tracking it for months. I understand it completely. Do you hear it? The fluency is real. The self-knowledge is real. The pattern map is accurate. And it has become a destination instead of a waypoint. The knowing becomes the summit. And they are standing at the top of it, proud, exhausted, relieved, while the actual mountain continues above them, unseen, unclimbed. Because here's the truth that Base Camp 2 cannot tell you by itself. Knowing your pattern is not the same thing as interrupting it. Interrupting is not the same as healing what's underneath it. The map is not the territory. And you can annotate the map forever, make it more detailed, more color-coded, more precisely calibrated. And the territory will remain exactly the same. Because maps don't change landscapes. Only the work that happens in the territory changes the territory. In 1996, the same storm that killed Rob Hall, a climber named Beck Weathers, was left for dead on Everest twice. The first time, his team found him alive, but so incapacitated, snowblind, severely frostbitten, unable to move, that they made the heartbreaking decision that attempting to carry him down would likely kill more people than it saved. They left him. Beck Weathers lay in the snow through the night, alone, in one of the most hostile environments on Earth, in temperatures that should have killed him within hours. And then, against everything that should have been physiologically impossible, he stood up. His hands were so frostbitten that they would later be amputated. He could barely see. He didn't know exactly where camp was. He stood up anyway. He walked into camp under his own power. His doctors later described what happened as physiologically impossible. They couldn't account for it in purely medical terms. Beck Weathers could. He said that what pulled him out of the snow, what reached into that impossible cold and gave him something stronger than hypothermia, stronger than frostbite, stronger than the death zone itself, was a vision, not a hallucination, a vision of his wife, of his children, their specific faces, the warmth of them, the reality of them, the life that was waiting for him on the other side of the mountain. And here's what I find most unbearingly moving about the Beck Weathers story. He later said, with complete honesty, the kind of honesty that only near death seems to produce, that Everest had been his escape. That the obsession with climbing, the training, the expeditions, the constant preparation for the next mountain had been the way he avoided being fully present in his own life, with his wife, with his children, with himself. The mountain gave him something he thought his actual life wasn't giving him. A place to feel alive, a purpose that was clear and measurable, a summit that, when reached, produced a feeling nothing else could replicate. And lying in the snow, his body shutting down, the mountain finally taking everything it had asked for, he saw his actual life for the first time, clearly, and it was enough to bring him home. Beck Weathers lost both hands to frostbite, part of his nose, part of his face. He came home a different person than the one who left, but he came home. And he has said many times in many interviews that the man who came home was more present, more alive, more genuinely there for his family than the man who left. Because the mountain showed him what he'd been climbing away from and what he almost never got back to. I think about Beck Weathers a lot, not just as a climbing story, but as a mirror. Because I know what it is to be consumed by the mountain, by the trade, by the recovery, by the winning streak, by the account that needs to get back to where it was, that the life waiting becomes invisible. I know what it is to be sitting at the screen long past the turnaround time because the summit is right there, and leaving now means admitting that today the mountain won. And I know in my body, not just in my understanding, what it cost. Not just financially, in the life that was waiting while I was at the desk, in the version of myself that exists away from the charts, the one that has dreams that have nothing to do with a P&L, the one that has a life she's been building towards, a different place, a different pace, more beauty, more stillness, more of what actually matters. That version of me needed the trading to heal, not just so the account would survive, but so she could finally start living the life she'd been deferring. I'm telling you this because I think you have a Beck Weathers vision too. Maybe you haven't seen it yet. Maybe you've been too deep in the summit bid to turn around and look, but it's there. The life waiting, the version of you that exists on the other side of healing. And I want you to know that life is not a reward for finally getting your trading right. That life is the reason to get your trading right. The summit worth climbing toward was never the account balance. It was always a freedom to live the way you actually want to live. Trading as a tool for that life, not a substitute for it. Here is what Base Camp 2 with Summit Fever looks like, and I want you to recognize it if it's where you are. You know your patterns. You can describe them fluently. You've mapped the triggers. the conditions, the emotional weather that precedes the behavior. And under pressure, at 26,000 feet, in the death zone of the trading day, when the loss hits and the activation fires, the patterns happen anyway. And now there's a new layer of confusion and shame because you knew. You could see it coming. You named it in advance and it still happened. Here's what that means. It means the pattern was never a cognitive problem. It was never going to be solved by knowing it. The pattern lives in the nervous system, not the mind. It was installed by experience, not by thought, and it can only be changed by experience, not insight. Knowing the pattern gives you the map. It tells you where to look. It tells you which terrain needs the most attention. It shows you which triggers to bring into the deeper work. But the deeper work, the actual changing of that pattern, where that pattern lives, that happens at Base Camp 3. And Base Camp 3 is where we are going next. So before the next episode, I want to give you your third piece of gear. This one isn't about the trading, it's about the trading in a way that matters most. I want you to find 15 minutes this week, not at the desk, somewhere that's comfortable, somewhere that isn't associated with charts or screens or the version of you that trades. And I want you to write as honestly as you can, without editing, without self-consciousness, the answer to this question. What is the life that is waiting for me on the other side of this healing? Not the account balance, not the strategy finally working, not the trading goals, the life. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Where is it? Where are you? Who are you with? What are you doing on a Tuesday morning that has nothing to do with the market? What have you been deferring? The trip? The relationship? The creative work? The slower pace? The place you've been dreaming about? Write it all down with as much specificity as you can. Not as a goal, not as a vision board, not as motivation. As a reminder of what you're actually climbing for. Because Beck Weathers didn't walk out of the death zone for a better risk-reward ratio. He walked out for his wife's face, for his children, for the specific, irreplaceable, completely unglamorous beauty of his actual life. That's the vision that's stronger than hypothermia. That's the vision that's stronger than summit fever. That's the vision that will be there on your worst trading days, if you write it down clearly enough to see it. Keep it somewhere you'll see it before you open the platform. Let it be the turnaround time the market can't override. I want to say something to you directly. The fact that you're here, 3 episodes in, still climbing, still willing to look, that is not small. The traders who find their way to this work and stick with it, they are not doing something anyone can see from the outside. There's no badge for this, no leaderboard, no account balance that reflects the internal work you're doing right now. Just you, on the mountain, doing the preparation that most traders never do. I'm doing this work too. Not from a finished place, not from a summit I've already reached. From the climb, I'm right alongside you. And I can tell you, from where I am on this mountain, the view is already different. The life is already closer. And on the days when the death zone calls, when the summit fever rises and the turnaround time feels impossible to honor, I look at my vision and I remember what I'm climbing for. I hope you find yours this week. I'll see you on Base Camp 3. And if you're climbing alone, if there's no one in your life who understands what the mountain actually costs, Overtraders Anonymous meets Sunday and Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. It's free, it's anonymous, and it's full of people who know this mountain from the inside. You don't have to climb alone anymore. I'll put the links in the description for you. And that vision that you're going to write this week, put it someplace where you'll see it before you open the platform. Not behind you, in front of you, where it belongs. See you soon.